I've never been great at gift giving. Not because I'm stingy, but because I've always thought most gifts are just clutter with a bow. Ties, gadgets, gift cards, none of it ever seemed to stick. Maybe that's why I thought a little humor would go further than something that ends up forgotten in a drawer. It was last Christmas. The first one we were spending in the new house, which I'd spent the better part of the year fixing up. Fresh paint, new fixtures, old furniture replaced. I was riding high, feeling like I was finally hitting my stride as a dad and husband. My son, Leo, had just turned 20. Studying engineering, sarcastic to the core, surviving on frozen pizza and memes. We had that sort of friendly, joking relationship. Or at least, I thought we did. The idea hit me during one of those insomnia-fueled YouTube spirals. A video about funny gifts for grown kids. And there it was, a paternity test kit, wrapped in sleek packaging, labeled something like, "How well do you really know your family?" I laughed. Clicked order. Thought it'd be a harmless laugh. Leo would crack up, maybe roll his eyes, we'd move on. The result would come back with some ancestry trivia, we'd joke about our Viking heritage, and that would be it. When it arrived, I wrapped it in silver paper and scribbled on the tag, "In case you're not sure I'm ugly enough to be your real dad." Christmas Eve was warm. Peaceful. Leo was in a great mood, his girlfriend Mia was there too, my wife Anna beaming through the candlelight. I passed out gifts slowly, savoring the moment. When Leo unwrapped mine, he laughed. "Seriously, Dad? A paternity test?" "Hey," I said, "just in case you're suspicious of where you got those ears." He laughed. I laughed. Anna rolled her eyes with a smile. Mia chuckled, mumbling something about classic dad jokes. It was exactly the reaction I hoped for. Or so I thought. The weeks after Leo's weekend visits settled into a rhythm, one that felt almost too calm. He texted Paul now and then, mostly short updates, memes, casual check-ins. Nothing intense. Just contact. That strange new thread between them existed without tension, but also without definition. At home, Leo was lighter somehow. Not cheerful, not exactly, but no longer weighed down by confusion. It was like opening the door to the past had let some air into the present. Anna and I were still finding our way back to normal. It was a strange recalibration. Some days we moved in perfect sync, dinner together, jokes shared, a sense of shared relief that Leo hadn't drifted too far. Other days felt muted, like the echo of something unresolved still lingered between us. One Saturday morning, while we were drinking coffee, Anna said, "Do you think we're pretending?" I looked up from the newspaper. Pretending what? That this didn't change everything. That we're still, us. I folded the page slowly. We're not the same. That's true. But we're still here. That has to mean something. Does it? Would we be having this coffee if it didn't? She didn't answer. But she reached for my hand across the table. Later that week, Leo came home with a surprise. Paul invited me to a family barbecue. Said I could bring someone. I raised an eyebrow. "Are you inviting us?" "Not Mom," he said quickly. "I think that'd be too weird. But you, if you want to come." My first instinct was to say no. Not out of pride, but out of fear. What would it even look like to stand across from the man whose DNA had rewritten the story of my life? But then Leo added, "I think it might help. For you. For me. For him." And I knew I couldn't say no. The drive there was quiet. Leo fiddled with the radio, eventually settling on a playlist we both liked, music we'd listened to years ago on camping trips, when he was still small enough to fall asleep in the back seat. When we pulled up to Paul's house, my heart beat like it wanted to escape. The backyard was already full of voices, kids running around, laughter spilling into the street. It felt ordinary. And that, somehow, made it harder. Paul came out to greet us. He looked just like his photos, older than me by a few years, slightly taller, more sun-worn. But his smile was cautious. Gentle. "Thanks for coming," he said, shaking my hand. "Thanks for inviting me." Leo stepped in, introducing me to Paul's wife, to the twins, to some cousins and neighbors whose names I forgot as soon as I heard them. I felt like an outsider, but not unwelcome. We ate, talked, played cornhole. The sun dipped low. Paul and I ended up standing side by side near the grill while Leo helped the kids roast marshmallows. "He's a good kid," Paul said. "He is. You did a great job with him." I nodded. "Thanks." There was a long pause. "You know, I think about what might have happened if Anna had told me," he said. "But then I look at him, and it's clear he didn't miss anything." I exhaled. I wondered the same. But I'm glad he's finding space for both of us. Paul turned toward me. "There's no competition here. I'm not trying to take your place." "You couldn't," I said. "Even if you tried." And just like that, something unspoken lifted. On the drive home, Leo was quiet. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah. It was just weird. But not bad weird. Just new." "You proud of how you handled it?" "Actually, yeah." I smiled. "Me too." That night, I stood outside on the porch, staring up at the stars. Anna joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "You went," she said. I did. And it was fine. Strange. But fine. She rested her head against my shoulder. "I don't know what I expected." "Me neither." We stood there in silence for a while. Then she asked, "Do you forgive me?" The question hit differently than I expected. Not because I hadn't thought about it, but because it wasn't a yes or no thing. It was a layered thing. A slow thing. "I'm working on it," I said. "And I think that's okay." "Yeah. It is." She squeezed me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. 2 weeks later, Leo brought home a frame. Inside was a photo of him, age 4, sitting on my shoulders at the beach. Sun in his hair, popsicle in hand. He handed it to me without a word. I looked at it, then at him. "Why this one?" He shrugged. "Because that day mattered. Still does." I placed the frame on the mantel. And for the first time since all this began, I felt like maybe we were building something again, not replacing the past, but honoring it. Not denying the truth. Just learning how to live with it. A few days later, Leo walked into the kitchen holding an envelope. "I sent it in," he said. I blinked. "Sent what in?" "The test." I figured, why not? Wanted to see if I'm 100% boring European. I laughed. "Well, good luck uncovering our Viking bloodline." And just like that, I forgot about it. Life went on, work deadlines, house projects, Anna talking about summer plans. The test never came up again. Until 2 weeks later. I was in the garage, halfway through building a shelf, when Leo appeared in the doorway. He wasn't smiling. His whole posture had shifted, tense, braced. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Everything all right? Can you come inside?" We walked into the living room. On the coffee table sat a printed sheet. He pointed at the top line. "Paternity, not matched." I stared. "Read it again." My brain couldn't compute. Leo stood still. Arms folded. Jaw clenched. "What does this mean?" I asked, even though I knew. "It means you're not my biological father." The sentence dropped like a stone into still water, no splash, just a sinking weight. I sat down. My knees couldn't hold me. "Maybe it's a mistake," I said. My voice didn't sound like mine. Leo slid the second page toward me. Explanation, sample match rate, 99.999% certainty. Everything in me began to vibrate, quietly, but violently. Like a wire pulled too tight. "Did you know?" he asked. I looked up at him. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer. There's a kind of quiet that follows a moment like that, not peaceful, not reflective. Just hollow. A quiet where every little sound feels exaggerated. The soft tick of the wall clock. The distant hum of the refrigerator. My own breath, shallow and unfamiliar. Leo was still standing. I remember thinking he looked older in that moment. Not 20, more like 30. Like someone who'd just come back from something. War, maybe. Or a place where the truth had a different weight. So, he said finally, do you have anything to say? I opened my mouth. Closed it again. My heart was still hammering, but my thoughts were tangled up in old memories I hadn't visited in years. A hospital. A scream. A baby in a blanket that Anna clutched like a lifeline. And then nothing. Just years of birthdays and bike rides and report cards and scraped knees. I didn't know, I said, and it was the truth. His face didn't soften. Really? I swear to you, Leo. I didn't know. I've always believed, that you were my son. He sat down slowly, like the weight of the sentence had drained his strength. Then how is this possible? That's when Anna walked in. She froze when she saw us. The look on our faces. The paper on the table. What's going on? She asked, already knowing. Leo turned to her. His voice didn't shake. Want to tell him? Or should I? Anna blinked. Her face went pale. Then, slowly, she walked to the armrest of the couch and sat down like her legs could barely hold her. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And I realized in that instant that she knew. Maybe not this exact moment. Maybe not this exact test. But something. Something she'd locked away for years. Anna? She pressed her lips together, drew in a deep breath. It was, once. Just once. Before you and I were serious. Before we talked about forever. I didn't know I was pregnant until later. And by then, I was sure. I wanted it to be you. The words hit me like rain in a thunderstorm, sudden, cold, too much at once. Leo stood up again. So he's not my father? He raised you, Anna said. He was there for everything. That counts for more than blood. Leo's fists clenched at his sides. It's not about blood. It's about trust. You both lied to me. We didn't lie, I said quickly. At least I didn't. I just didn't know. You gave me that test, he snapped. As a joke. And I didn't think. Exactly. You didn't think. About what it might mean. About what you might find. The room felt smaller. Tighter. Like the air had thickened into something unbreathable. Anna wiped at her eyes. I was scared. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. But it didn't. It never really does it? Leo looked at us like we were strangers. And maybe in that moment, we were. He grabbed his jacket, turned to the door. Where are you going? I asked. I don't know, he said. Somewhere else. Anywhere but here. He left without slamming the door. That somehow made it worse. Anna and I sat in silence. The kind of silence where you can hear the years falling apart. Who was it? I asked eventually. Who's the biological father? She shook her head. I don't know. I mean, I have a guess. But I haven't seen him since before Leo was born. You could have told me. I was afraid you'd leave. I let out a bitter laugh. You didn't think I deserved the truth? I didn't think any of us could handle it. We didn't speak for the rest of the night. We just sat. Each in our own silence. Each in our own guilt. The next morning, Leo wasn't home. His room looked untouched, bed made, desk neat. His toothbrush still in the bathroom. But he wasn't there. I texted. No reply. Anna called. Straight to voicemail. We waited. And every hour that passed, the house felt less like home. When he finally returned 2 days later, he looked tired. Not angry. Just tired. I stayed with Mia, he said. She didn't ask questions. We nodded. Thankful. Ashamed. I don't know what to do with this, he said. With this knowledge. You don't have to decide anything right now, I said. You can take all the time you need. He looked at me, eyes unreadable. I thought I knew who I was. You're still Leo. That hasn't changed. Hasn't it? The question hung in the air long after he went to bed. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Anna. The house was full of ghosts. Not dead ones, just truths we'd buried so deep, they came back to haunt us like strangers. The days after Leo came back were like walking on glass. Not shattered glass, just fragile, thin, and prone to splintering under too much weight. We moved through the house with quiet steps and quieter words. Meals were made, eaten, cleared, without the usual banter or music in the background. Leo stayed mostly in his room. Anna and I slept in silence. Sometimes we held hands in the dark, like lifelines. Sometimes we didn't. I tried to give Leo space, but it was unbearable not knowing what he was thinking. I'd see glimpses of him, brushing his teeth, pouring cereal, staring at his phone, but the warmth in his face had drained away. He was polite. Not angry. But that scared me more. Anger is still connection. Silence is distance. I thought about saying something 100 times. But I didn't know where to begin. What do you say to the person you raised, when they've just found out you're not who they thought you were? I kept circling back to one question: was I still his dad? One night I knocked on his door. Yeah, he said. I stepped in. He was sitting at his desk, laptop open, headphones around his neck. Can we talk for a minute? He didn't turn around, but he didn't say no. I sat on the edge of the bed, palms sweaty. I want you to know that I never once thought of you as anything but my son. Even now. Especially now. He nodded slowly, still facing the screen. You know that, right? He finally turned. His eyes looked tired. Too tired for someone his age. I don't know what I know anymore, he said. I swallowed. That's fair. It's not just about DNA, Dad. It's about everything. About trust. About what my whole life means now. I looked at the floor. I get that. I do. And I know I have no right to ask you to move past it. I just hope you don't throw away what we still have. He stood and walked to the door. I thought he was going to leave the room. Instead, he closed it. Then he said something I wasn't ready for. Do you want to find out who he is? The other guy? I blinked. What? My biological father. Do you want to know who he is? I didn't know how to answer that. The thought had occurred to me, of course. But always as a kind of shadow, not something to bring into the light. I don't know, I said. Because I do. He sat down across from me. I don't know why. Maybe it's stupid. But I want to know. Not because I want him in my life. But because I just can't live with this hole where a name should be. I nodded slowly. If you want to find out, I'll help you. He looked surprised. Really? Really? We sat in silence for a while. Then he asked. What if he's someone horrible? What if he doesn't want to meet me? Then you'll still have me. He didn't answer. But he didn't argue, either. The next day, Leo asked Anna for details. It was a quiet conversation in the living room. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending not to listen, but I caught bits of it. A name. A town. A time. Later, Anna told me everything. His name was Paul, she said. We weren't serious. We barely dated. He was complicated. Moved around a lot. I haven't heard from him since the year Leo was born. Do you think he knows? She shook her head. No. I never told him. Leo found Paul on Facebook. It was surprisingly easy. The guy hadn't posted much, but the profile picture showed a man who looked vaguely familiar, probably because I could see traces of Leo in his face. He lived in another state now. Was married, had kids of his own. Leo stared at the screen for a long time. What do I even say? He asked. You could start with the truth, I offered. Just, gently. Leo sent a message. Short. Respectful. Honest. We waited. 2 days later, Paul replied. Hi Leo. I think we should talk. Just that. No punctuation. No emoji. But it was enough to turn our world sideways again. Leo agreed to a call. Scheduled it for a Thursday night. We all sat at the dinner table in silence that evening, each of us carrying a different kind of dread. Afterward, Leo went to his room, closed the door. Anna and I sat on the couch, not touching, not speaking. I kept glancing at the clock. An hour passed. Finally, Leo emerged. He looked stunned. He says he wants to meet me, he said. In person. Next weekend. My heart dropped. Anna inhaled sharply. Are you going? Leo nodded. Yeah. I think I have to. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Because how do you tell your son not to chase the truth, when you were the one who accidentally handed him the map? The week leading up to the meeting with Paul passed like a strange kind of storm. You could feel it coming, taste it in the air, but nothing actually happened. Not yet. The house was quiet in a way that felt unnatural, like everyone was holding their breath. Leo didn't say much. He was distracted, checking his phone, reading something, then zoning out. Anna hovered around him, asking gentle questions, offering snacks, trying not to show how nervous she was. And me? I felt like I was watching something from the edge of a cliff, knowing that once it started, there'd be no turning back. He planned to drive alone. 4 hours each way. I'll leave early Saturday morning, he said. Be back before midnight. You don't want company? Anna asked. No. I think I need to do this by myself. I didn't argue. I didn't offer to come. He didn't ask. But I think we both knew the weight of that silence. The night before he left, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen, staring into a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Anna joined me after a while, hair messy, wrapped in a blanket. You okay? She asked. I gave her a look. She sighed. Stupid question. We sat for a long while before she said, I never thought this day would come. Neither did I. I always thought if we ignored it long enough, it would just not matter. But it does. To him. And to you? I didn't answer. Because the truth was complicated. It did matter. But not because of the man Leo was going to meet. It mattered because something in our family had cracked, and no matter how much glue you used, some things never looked the same again. Leo left at sunrise. I watched from the window as he backed out of the driveway. No music, no coffee cup on the dashboard, just his eyes forward, jaw tight. All day I kept checking my phone. Pointless. He said he'd text when he got there, and he did. I'm here. That was it. Then nothing for hours. I tried to keep busy. Fixed the leaky faucet. Cleaned out the garage. Even scrubbed the grout in the bathroom, which I hadn't done since we moved in. Anna cooked but didn't eat. I ate but didn't taste. Around 9:30 that night, the front door opened. We both froze. Leo walked in, shoulders slumped, hoodie still zipped up. Hey, he said. We stared at him. He dropped his bag by the door and sat at the kitchen table. So, I said, gently, how'd it go? He ran a hand through his hair. Weird. Yeah. He looks like me. Not exactly, but, yeah. It's like looking at some version of myself. Like a shadow I didn't know I had. Anna poured him a glass of water. He drank it in one long gulp. Was he okay? Leo nodded. He was calm. Awkward. Didn't deny anything. Said he always wondered. But he never followed up because Mom never reached out. Anna looked down. He has 2 kids. Twins. 9 years old. A wife who's nice, I guess. They were out when I got there. Do you want to see him again? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Maybe. I don't know. He said I can reach out anytime. That he's open. But he didn't push. And how do you feel? He leaned back. Closed his eyes. Exhausted. Confused. It's like, he exists now. And he didn't before. That changes things. Even if I don't want it to. We sat with that. Finally, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. What does that mean for us? Leo looked at me. Really looked. I don't know yet. And for the first time, I saw the distance between us not as something he'd put there, but something we'd both built, brick by brick, in silence, jokes, and assumptions. The next few days were filled with weird rhythms. Leo didn't talk much about Paul. He seemed relieved that the meeting was over, but also unsure of what to do with it. Like someone who had opened a door but wasn't sure if he wanted to walk through. Anna asked me one night, "Do you think he's going to leave us behind?" I said, he's trying not to. But we need to meet him halfway. So I did something that felt terrifying. I knocked on his door. Hey, I said. Wanna grab lunch tomorrow? Just us? He hesitated. Sure. We went to the diner we used to go to when he was a kid. The one with the red vinyl booths and the greasy fries. We ordered the same food. He dunked his fries in ketchup the way I do. I'm not trying to be your favorite again, I joked. He smirked. You never were. We laughed. And it felt familiar. You know, he said later, this thing doesn't change the fact that you raised me. That you were there. Every day. I nodded. That means everything to me. But it also doesn't erase what I found out. I need space for both. Then I'll make room. We didn't hug. Didn't cry. But something settled between us. Not closure. Not peace. Just recognition. He was mine. And he wasn't. Both things were true. And somehow, we'd have to learn to live in the middle. Something changed after that lunch. Subtle, but real. Leo started leaving his door open again. I'd hear music from his room, lofi beats, indie rock, the same mix of genres he used to play when doing homework. He came into the kitchen when Anna and I cooked, not to talk necessarily, but just to exist near us again. The distance hadn't vanished, but it was no longer an impassable gap. It was something we were learning to cross, slowly. But with every small step forward, a new weight settled on me. A kind of grief. Not just for what I'd lost, but for what I'd never known was mine to begin with. I found myself staring at Leo when he wasn't looking, memorizing the shape of his nose, the curve of his jaw, the way his eyebrows furrowed when he was focused. He still looked like my son, but I had to admit some of that was wishful thinking. And some of it wasn't mine at all. One evening, after Anna had gone to bed, Leo and I sat in the living room watching an old movie. Halfway through, he said, "You ever wonder what it would have been like if you knew the truth earlier?" I paused the movie. All the time. Would you have stayed with Mom? The question hit harder than I expected. I hadn't let myself go there, not really. I don't know, I said truthfully. Maybe not in the beginning. But I can't imagine my life without you. So whatever choices I might have made, I'm glad we ended up here. Leo didn't say anything. Just nodded and pressed play again. But the question lingered. Would I have stayed? The next morning, I found myself digging through old photo albums. Birthdays. Vacations. Leo in every stage of childhood, from drooling baby to awkward preteen to brooding teenager. There I was too, holding him, laughing, clapping at his school play. I stopped at a picture from his first bike ride. His smile wide, teeth missing, helmet crooked. I remember that day clearly, him falling, getting back up, crying, and finally making it to the end of the sidewalk. And me, cheering like he'd won the Tour de France. That's what fathers carry. Not the blood. The moments. Still, I kept wondering, what about Paul? What kind of man was he really? What had Leo seen in him? And more importantly, what might Paul now want from Leo? I didn't ask. But the question wouldn't leave me alone. Then came the text. From Leo, one afternoon while I was at work. Paul invited me to visit again. Stay the weekend. Meet his family. I think I'm going. I stared at my phone for a full minute. Not out of jealousy. Out of fear. I typed and deleted 3 different replies before settling on. Thanks for telling me. Let me know if you need anything. He replied with a thumbs up emoji. It felt oddly formal. Anna tried to be supportive, but I could tell she was rattled. What if they really connect, she said one night in bed. Like, bond? Then that's his right. And what happens to us? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. She turned to face me. Do you still love me? I blinked. Of course I do. Even with everything that's happened? Especially because of it. We survived this. We're surviving it. That counts for something. She nodded, but her eyes didn't close for a long time. Leo left on a Friday morning. This time, he didn't look like he was bracing himself. He looked curious. Not excited, but open. Ready. You sure you have everything? Anna asked. Yeah. I'll be back Sunday. He hugged her. And then turned to me. There was a pause. A space where a hug might have gone. Instead, he clapped my shoulder. Thanks for being cool about this, he said. I nodded. Just be safe. And keep an open mind. He left. And for the first time in a while, the house felt not just empty, but exposed. That weekend dragged. We didn't do much. Watched a movie. Ate takeout. Went for a walk in silence. I tried not to check my phone every hour. Failed miserably. Sunday evening came. No texts. No update. Finally, around 9 p.m., Leo walked through the front door. He looked tired. But calm. Hey, I said. Hey. Anna stood up. How was it? Good, he said. We talked a lot. Played board games with the kids. It was normal. Did you feel like you belonged? I asked. He thought for a moment. Sort of. But not fully. Not yet. Do you want to go back? Maybe. But I'm not moving in or anything, if that's what you're thinking. I chuckled, relief bubbling up unexpectedly. He looked at me seriously. Paul's a decent guy. But he's not you. And just like that, I felt something in my chest unlock. I'm glad to hear that, I said. Leo nodded. Then he added, but I want a relationship with him. I think I need that. I took a breath. Then you should have it. He smiled faintly. Thanks, Dad. And that one word, Dad, landed like a gift I didn't expect. One I would never again take for granted. The weeks after Leo's weekend visits settled into a rhythm, one that felt almost too calm. He texted Paul now and then, mostly short updates, memes, casual check-ins. Nothing intense. Just contact. That strange new thread between them existed without tension, but also without definition. At home, Leo was lighter somehow. Not cheerful, not exactly, but no longer weighed down by confusion. It was like opening the door to the past had let some air into the present. Anna and I were still finding our way back to normal. It was a strange recalibration. Some days we moved in perfect sync, dinner together, jokes shared, a sense of shared relief that Leo hadn't drifted too far. Other days felt muted, like the echo of something unresolved still lingered between us. One Saturday morning, while we were drinking coffee, Anna said, "Do you think we're pretending?" I looked up from the newspaper. Pretending what? That this didn't change everything. That we're still us. I folded the page slowly. We're not the same. That's true. But we're still here. That has to mean something. Does it? Would we be having this coffee if it didn't? She didn't answer. But she reached for my hand across the table. Later that week, Leo came home with a surprise. Paul invited me to a family barbecue. Said I could bring someone. I raised an eyebrow. Are you inviting us? Not Mom, he said quickly. I think that'd be too weird. But you, if you want to come. My first instinct was to say no. Not out of pride, but out of fear. What would it even look like to stand across from the man whose DNA had rewritten the story of my life? But then Leo added, I think it might help. For you. For me. For him. And I knew I couldn't say no. The drive there was quiet. Leo fiddled with the radio, eventually settling on a playlist we both liked, music we'd listened to years ago on camping trips, when he was still small enough to fall asleep in the back seat. When we pulled up to Paul's house, my heart beat like it wanted to escape. The backyard was already full of voices, kids running around, laughter spilling into the street. It felt ordinary. And that, somehow, made it harder. Paul came out to greet us. He looked just like his photos, older than me by a few years, slightly taller, more sun-worn. But his smile was cautious. Gentle. Thanks for coming, he said, shaking my hand. Thanks for inviting me. Leo stepped in, introducing me to Paul's wife, to the twins, to some cousins and neighbors whose names I forgot as soon as I heard them. I felt like an outsider, but not unwelcome. We ate. Talked. Played cornhole. The sun dipped low. Paul and I ended up standing side by side near the grill while Leo helped the kids roast marshmallows. He's a good kid, Paul said. He is. You did a great job with him. I nodded. Thanks. There was a long pause. You know, I think about what might have happened if Anna had told me, he said. But then I look at him, and it's clear he didn't miss anything. I exhaled. I wondered the same. But I'm glad he's finding space for both of us. Paul turned toward me. There's no competition here. I'm not trying to take your place. You couldn't, I said. Even if you tried. And just like that, something unspoken lifted. On the drive home, Leo was quiet. You okay? I asked. Yeah. It was just weird. But not bad weird. Just new. You proud of how you handled it? Actually, yeah. I smiled. Me too. That night, I stood outside on the porch, staring up at the stars. Anna joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. You went, she said. I did. And? It was fine. Strange. But fine. She rested her head against my shoulder. I don't know what I expected. Me neither. We stood there in silence for a while. Then she asked, Do you forgive me? The question hit differently than I expected. Not because I hadn't thought about it. But because it wasn't a yes or no thing. It was a layered thing. A slow thing. I'm working on it, I said. And I think that's okay. Yeah. It is. She squeezed me. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. 2 weeks later, Leo brought home a frame. Inside was a photo of him, age 4, sitting on my shoulders at the beach. Sun in his hair, popsicle in hand. He handed it to me without a word. I looked at it, then at him. Why this one? He shrugged. Because that day mattered. Still does. I placed the frame on the mantel. And for the first time since all this began, I felt like maybe we were building something again, not replacing the past, but honoring it. Not denying the truth. Just learning how to live with it. Just when I thought we had turned a corner, when the silence in the house no longer felt heavy, and the word dad no longer sounded uncertain, life, with its cruel sense of timing, cracked the pavement again. It started with a phone call. Anna was in the kitchen chopping vegetables when her phone rang. I heard her voice shift from casual to sharp in an instant. The kind of tone that makes you put your own fork down and listen. "You're sure?" she asked. "When did this happen?" When she hung up, she looked pale. "Paul had a stroke," she said. "He's in the hospital." Everything that had felt steady evaporated. Leo was upstairs. We didn't even hesitate, we both went up together. "Leo?" He opened the door, half distracted. "Yeah?" "It's Paul," Anna said gently. "He's in the hospital." "A stroke." His face didn't crumple. It froze. "Is he okay?" "They don't know yet." He sat down on the edge of his bed. Quiet. Still. "Do you want to go see him?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah. I think I need to." We made the drive together the next morning. 3 hours, mostly silent. Leo stared out the window the entire time, arms folded. Anna and I didn't try to fill the space. There was nothing to say that wouldn't feel too light or too heavy. When we arrived at the hospital, Paul was in ICU. Stable, but unconscious. Machines beeped steadily. His wife was there, red-eyed but composed. She hugged Leo, then nodded politely at us. "He was asking about you 2 days ago," she told Leo. "He wanted to send you a book he'd just finished." Leo walked to the bed. He stood there a long time. Not speaking. Just watching the man who, only months ago, was just a name. I stayed in the hallway. I didn't want to intrude. I wasn't sure what I was anymore in this story. But after a few minutes, Leo stepped out and found me. "Do you want to come in?" I blinked. "You sure?" "Yeah. I think it might help." So I stood beside him, next to the hospital bed, and looked at Paul. He looked older than the last time. Frielier. Smaller. "I'm not mad at him," Leo said suddenly. I glanced at him. I was, a little. For not being there. For being part of this whole thing. Even if it wasn't his fault. But seeing him like this. I don't want to waste time being angry. I nodded. "That's fair. I just don't know how to be both his son and yours." I didn't know either. "Maybe you don't have to choose," I said finally. "Maybe it's not either or. Maybe it's just, and." That night, we stayed in a motel. A strange, sterile place with stiff sheets and the constant hum of an ice machine. Leo and I shared a room. Anna had her own next door. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever think about what you missed?" I knew exactly what he meant. "Sometimes." "Does it make you resent me?" "Never." He turned to face me. "But you must have wondered if I'd really been yours." "Leo," I said, "you've always been mine. Whether I knew it or not. The biology changed nothing about how I raised you. About how I loved you." He didn't speak, but in the dim motel light, I saw his eyes shimmer. "You know what I think about," he whispered. "What?" "The way you used to stay up with me when I was sick. Reading me that ridiculous pirate book with all the voices. I don't think Paul would have done that." I smiled. "You liked the parrot voice the best." He laughed softly. "Yeah. God, it was awful. And unforgettable." "Exactly." We fell asleep not long after. And in the middle of that motel room, something old and broken felt like it had been stitched together again, not fully healed, but closed enough to hold. When Paul woke up the next day, he was groggy but responsive. Leo spent time alone with him. I didn't ask what they talked about. On the drive back home, Leo was quiet again, but it was a different quiet. Settled. He hummed along to a song on the radio. "You okay?" I asked. "I think so," he said. "I think I finally know who I am." I turned to him. "And who's that?" He smiled. "I'm someone who's lucky enough to have 2 dads." The words landed gently. But they stayed. When we got home, Anna hugged Leo tightly. He let her. She didn't ask questions. That night, he sat with me on the porch. "I want to make sure you know something," he said. "What's that?" "You're still the guy I call when my car won't start. The guy I'll want advice from when I have kids someday. That hasn't changed." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "That's all I need." He smiled. "I know." And in that quiet evening air, I realized blood was never the only thing that made a father. Sometimes, it was just showing up. Every damn day. After Paul's stroke, something shifted for everyone. He recovered slowly, thankfully, and Leo continued to keep in touch with him, but it was clear that the dramatic urgency of biology had given way to something more quiet, more lived in. Leo didn't feel like he had to prove anything anymore. He wasn't choosing sides. He was just building something new with both of us, in his own way. At home, I started to notice how he began to treat the word dad. It was no longer heavy, no longer said with hesitation or testing the waters. He'd call out from the driveway, "Hey Dad, can you give me a hand with this?" Or text me from the store, "Dad, what kind of oil does the mower need again?" It was like that word had finally returned to its natural place in his mouth. And every time he said it, I felt it land. Not as a given, but as a gift. One night, we were watching a basketball game together on the couch. Just the two of us. Nothing serious, just the kind of lazy weeknight that doesn't demand much of anyone. During halftime, Leo muted the TV and said, "So, I've been thinking." "That always sounds dangerous," I joked. He smirked. "No, seriously. About family. About what it actually means." "All right." When this whole thing happened, I thought everything had to be either one thing or another. Black or white. Real or fake. Yours or his. That's understandable. Yeah. But I think family is more like layers. Like, people leave imprints on you. Some are deep, some are surface. Some are good, some aren't. But they're all still part of you. I nodded slowly. And I realized, he went on, "You're in every damn layer." I smiled, but I didn't say anything. I just reached over and gave his shoulder a squeeze. And he let it sit there. He didn't pull away. In the weeks that followed, Leo started spending more time around the house. He helped with yard work, even cooked dinner once, spaghetti, slightly overcooked, but no one cared. He and Anna seemed to settle into a rhythm, too. They weren't always comfortable, but they were honest. She apologized again, this time without defensiveness. He accepted it. Not with fireworks. Just with quiet, the kind that means the word stuck. Then came a new curveball. Leo was offered an internship. Not just anywhere, at a major tech firm. Across the country. He brought it up one night at dinner. "So, I got a call today. You know that company I applied to on a whim? Turns out they want me for the summer. San Diego." Anna's fork froze halfway to her mouth. I blinked. "That's amazing. When would you go?" "End of May. It's 10 weeks. They cover housing. It's a big deal." "Wow," I said. "That's huge." "Yeah." We all sat there for a moment, adjusting. "I'm proud of you," I added. He smiled. "Thanks." Later that night, I found myself standing outside his room, hand hovering near the door. I knocked once. "Yeah?" I stepped in. He was on his bed, laptop open, tabs of internship documents and logistics sprawled across the screen. "I just wanted to say, whatever happens after this summer, we're always here. This house. Your mom. Me. Nothing about that changes." He looked at me. "I know. You sure?" He nodded. "I'm not running away, Dad. I'm just going. I think for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can go and not be broken." That hit harder than I expected. "I'm really proud of the man you're becoming." Well, I had a pretty good template. I chuckled. "Paul will be jealous." Leo grinned. "I'll tell him to step it up." As the internship approached, the house slowly filled with boxes and paperwork and plans. Anna helped with packing, and I handled the logistics, flight info, insurance, the boring stuff. It was like preparing for college all over again, but with a deeper, more adult kind of goodbye hanging in the air. The night before he left, we had one last dinner as a family. Leo made a toast. To weird journeys, he said. To the things we didn't expect but somehow survived. And to the people who stuck around. We clinked glasses. I swallowed a lump. Later, I stood in his doorway, watching him double-check his suitcase. Need anything else? No. I'm good. He zipped the case and stood. Thanks for everything, Dad. Seriously. Not just the ride to the airport. For staying. Even when you didn't have to. I did have to. Because I love you. He hugged me. Not a half pat, not a guy hug. A full, real, weighty embrace. I love you too, he said. When we dropped him off the next morning, the goodbye was surprisingly simple. No tears. Just a wave, a smile, and a see you soon. But on the drive home, Anna reached for my hand and said, "We did okay." And for once, I believed her. Leo's absence echoed louder than I expected. It wasn't dramatic, just a shift in the air. The house stayed cleaner, quieter. The fridge stayed fuller longer. But the energy was different. A kind of invisible absence sat at the table with us at dinner. Anna tried to fill the space with stories about work or movies she wanted to see. I responded, but both of us knew we were circling something. Every few days, Leo texted. Nothing deep, photos of his desk, beach sunsets, sarcastic comments about his boss. He sounded good. He sounded whole. But it was like hearing a familiar voice through a slightly foggy speaker. I didn't push. I didn't ask questions he didn't offer answers to. But I missed him. One evening, 2 weeks into his internship, he called. Not a text, a call. I answered immediately. Hey, everything okay? Yeah. I wanted to talk. You got it. There was a pause. A breath. I had a weird dream last night. I was a kid again. We were at the cabin, the one with the leaky roof, remember? Yeah. I do. And in the dream, I was sick. And you were there. Reading me that pirate book again. But this time, your voice kept changing, like you were turning into someone else. Paul, maybe. I don't know. It was strange. I didn't say anything right away. Anyway, he said, I woke up thinking about what that meant. And I think I'm afraid that by building something with Paul, I'm somehow letting go of you. And I don't want that. I leaned back in my chair, heart beating a little faster. Leo, listen to me. You're not replacing me. You're expanding your story. That's allowed. That's human. I know. It just doesn't always feel that simple. Of course it doesn't. But I'm not going anywhere. You don't need to ration your love. He exhaled. Thanks, Dad. Always. The next weekend, he surprised us with a visit. Just showed up at the front door with a duffel bag and a grin. Thought I'd spend a few days at home, he said casually. Anna hugged him so tightly he winced. We grilled that night. Sat outside under the string lights we'd hung years ago but rarely turned on. Leo told stories about his internship, the people he'd met, the weird office politics. It was the kind of night we used to have all the time. After dinner, just the two of us sat outside while Anna cleaned up. You seem different, I said. I am. But not in a bad way. Just more aware. Of who I am. Where I came from. And where you're going? He laughed. Not a clue. But I'm not scared anymore. We sat in silence for a while. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. Did you ever resent Mom? I mean, really? For not telling you? I thought about that. At first, yes. Not just for what she hid, but for making me doubt things I'd always felt certain about. But I also know she was scared. And human. And that we don't make our best decisions when we're both. He nodded slowly. I think I've forgiven her. Even if part of me still wants to be mad. You're allowed to be both. That's part of growing up. It sucks. It does. He looked at me. You know you're still the person I measure everything else against, right? I blinked. What do you mean? I mean, when I think about what kind of man I want to be. Or what kind of father, someday. It's still you in my head. Not Paul. I had no words. Just gratitude. Thanks for telling me that. I wanted you to know. When he left again, it didn't feel like a goodbye. It felt like a continuation. He texted when he landed. Sent a photo of his room, his desk, a cup of coffee with a caption, "Back to the grind." I saved the photo. A few days later, Anna came home from work with a curious expression. "You'll never guess who I ran into," she said. "Try me." Paul's wife. At the bookstore. I blinked. That's random. She was kind. Said Paul's recovery is going well. He's even started painting again. He paints? Apparently. Did she say anything else? Anna hesitated. She thanked me. For letting Leo get to know them. Said it changed Paul's life. That sat heavy on my chest, not in a bad way, but in a way that reminded me this story wasn't just ours. It was theirs too. That's good, I said. Yeah. It is. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept old birthday cards, drawings Leo made in grade school, a Father's Day coupon book he'd written when he was 10. I held one in my hand, one free hug anytime you want. No expiration. I closed my eyes and let the weight of it settle in. Because love, when it's real, doesn't expire. It changes, expands, gets messy. But it doesn't vanish. And neither did we. Summer faded the way it always does, more quickly than expected, with a quiet surrender to shorter days and colder air. Leo's internship ended in mid-August, and he returned home with a duffel bag of dirty laundry and 1,000 new stories. He was tanner. Sharper. Not exactly older, but worn in a way that made me realize he'd been stretched by the world in just the right ways. Grown. Anna fussed over him. I watched from the doorway, grateful for the way she could still make him laugh with a single word. He settled back in quickly, his room became messy again, the fridge emptier by the day. And just like that, we were all orbiting the same rhythm again. But something lingered. A quiet energy in the air. I knew it wasn't over. One evening, we sat in the backyard. It was the first night of real fall, crisp, with leaves starting to curl. Leo had built a fire in the pit, and we all sat around it sipping cider, the way we had so many times before life split itself open. He reached into a bag beside him and handed me a small wrapped box. "What's this?" I asked. "Late Father's Day gift." I was going to mail it, but figured I'd wait. I opened the box slowly. Inside was a small photo book, hand-bound, simple, but filled with old pictures. Photos of us. Me teaching him to ride a bike. Fishing trips. School plays. The backyard snowman with the crooked carrot. Campfires, pancakes, even the ridiculous pirate costume I wore one Halloween. On the last page was a letter. Handwritten. "Dad, this isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering what mattered more. You never needed a test to prove who you are to me. You showed up. You stayed. That was always enough." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. Just held the book in my lap while the fire crackled. Leo looked away, letting the moment settle. Anna wiped at her cheek, pretending it was smoke. We talked late into the night. Not about the past. About the future. Leo was thinking about grad school. Maybe teaching one day. He said he wanted to help people find clarity when their world got turned upside down. "Wonder where I got that idea," he said with a grin. The next morning, over coffee, he asked me something I never expected. Would you come with me? Where? Back to Paul's. He invited all of us. Even you. Said he wants to meet the man who raised me. I paused. And you want me there? Yeah. I do. Not to prove anything. Just to be whole. To not pretend this didn't happen. Anna chimed in from the other room. I'd like that too. I think it's time. So we went. The following weekend, we drove down together. Paul greeted us at the door with a nervous smile. His wife, warm and open. The twins ran around with toy lightsabers. It could have been any suburban Saturday. We sat in the living room. Talked like adults who had lived different lives but somehow shared something enormous. Paul asked about Leo's childhood. I filled in gaps. He asked about the funny things, the hard years, the good ones. And then, to my surprise, Paul leaned forward. You raised a good man. I'm grateful. I nodded. So am I. We shook hands, but it felt like something more. A quiet acknowledgement that we were both part of the same story now. Leo took a photo of all of us together. Later, he sent it in a group message with one word, family. Driving home, I felt something loosen. Not let go, just relax. The tightness I'd carried in my chest since the test, since the revelation, since the truth cracked open our world, it softened. You okay? Anna asked as we crossed the state line. Yeah, I said. I think I am. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen. The house was quiet. I opened Leo's photo book again. The pictures blurred a little through the tears. Not of sadness. Of gratitude. In a drawer nearby, the old test results still sat. Unread now. Irrelevant. I thought about throwing them away. But I didn't. Because they were part of the story too. And I've learned something. Truth doesn't break you. Silence does. Fear does. But truth raw and hard and uninvited can also be what lets the light in. Leo came in quietly. Couldn't sleep? I asked. Nah. Just thinking. He poured himself some water. Stood beside me. Thanks for reading the book. Thanks for writing it. He hesitated, then said. You know what Paul told me before we left? What? He said, you're lucky. You got two people who'd fight for you. Most folks don't even get one. I smiled. He's right. Leo sat down. We didn't talk much after that. Just sat, shoulder to shoulder. And in that silence, I felt something profound. This story didn't end where it broke. It kept going. So did we. And the gift, the real one, was that we still chose each other. Every day. And that was more than enough.